sometimes people, they crave novelty as opposed to a sound approach that's consistent over time. And if you have a model where you're trying to leverage what's going on in your existing market and optimizing for your systems and scale, and it served you well, then stay focused. I'm Michael Mogill, founder and CEO of Crisp, the nation's #1 law firm growth company. I've built my business through practice, not theory. Crisp started with just $500 to my name and has grown to over 8 figures in revenue over the last few years, earning a spot on the Inc. 500 list of the fastest growing private companies in America. Our approach has been to take everything we've learned about generating massive growth within our own organization and help the country's most ambitious and committed law firm owners do the same for theirs. In each episode of this podcast, I sit down with innovative market leaders from the legal industry and beyond to learn from those who thrive in the face of adversity, challenge the status quo, and define what it means to be a true game changer.
This is Jessica, Head of Coaching Strategy at Crisp, and today we're flipping the script for another special edition episode to get Michael's take on the difference between growing your revenue and scaling your business, how to run your own race when competitors seem to be winning with different strategies, and when the pursuit of perfection becomes procrastination in disguise.
Perfect is the enemy of good, good enough. And yes, you can always do things better, but if your goals are to grow and scale your firm, and let's say your goal is to either increase revenue, increase profit, and so on, that if you're turning business away, the challenge with that is there's a lot of downstream effects relating to that.
That's coming up on the Game Changing Attorney podcast. All right, here we are, back again, back with another tale.
Yes, welcome back. We were thinking, okay, what could be an interesting thought starter for this episode of the podcast? And we were thinking about, okay, so conversation that we had with our oldest daughter, all right, that's now sitting at 4 weeks no iPad and then 2 weeks no dessert. And you think, okay, so before someone can get to 2 weeks no dessert, they got to get to 1 week no dessert, and then like 1 day no dessert. And then 4 weeks, the iPad, you kind of work backwards, right? Although I think we should abolish the iPad completely because now we're just reading.
Oh, she's thriving without it.
Oh,
Amelia Bedelia.
Amelia Bedelia, yeah.
So nostalgic.
Amelia Bedelia. And then she loves it. She's like, who read one more chapter? She's got to find out what's next because like each chapter kind of ends on a little bit of a cliffhanger. So the lesson this weekend was that it's okay to make a mistake. It's always, what is our response after that? Like, do you make a mistake after a mistake? Because then you start to pile things on. And I think this weekend, like she was running up and like hugging her baby sister, and then like they fell to the ground. And she like knocked her head a little bit, like
she's
on a rug.
Little dramatic.
Yes, so she starts losing her mind. And okay, it happens, right? But then the problem was she was losing her mind so much that she didn't want to brush her teeth, and then she didn't want to get in the bath, and then she didn't want to do all sorts of things, right? So it got to the point where before you know it, you don't have dessert anymore. And she's like, no, give me another chance. And I'm like, girl, first of all, I give you like 5 chances,
yes.
right? I even told you this is the 5th chance.
Yes.
Right? And it reminds me of this Miles Davis quote. I actually just had it pulled up. It was a quote from Miles Davis. He said that if you hit a wrong note, it is the next note you play that determines if it's good or bad. And this is like a metaphor for life in many respects, in the sense that it's less about what happens to you, or as I would actually think, what happens for you. But it's less about the stimulus and more so around the response. And it's how do you respond to whatever it might be, whether it's adversity, something doesn't go your way, you make a mistake. Do you make a mistake and you follow it up with an even bigger mistake? Like I see this as like, gamblers, dilemma, right? Like a lot of people gamble. When we were in Vegas, I just walked straight past the tables. There's nothing there for me.
Yeah.
But there's some people that, they will lose $100 and they think, okay, if I had another $100, that I can get that 100 back plus make 100 more.
Get myself out of this.
As opposed to saying, hey, like maybe I should step away from the tables. And maybe that losing the $100 was, okay, like a fun lesson and I can fly home and not lose as much sleep over it. But if I take that 100 and then it turns into like not just losing 100, but losing 1,000 or 10,000, well, that's a very different flight home. So I always look at the standpoint, we're teaching our daughter this, the standpoint that like, you're going to make mistakes. Mistakes happen. Like that's okay. Just make sure that the next decision isn't another mistake.
They start compounding.
You don't start compounding and digging an even deeper and deeper and deeper hole.
Yep.
And a lot of times, in relation to the Miles Davis quote, how you respond sometimes determines whether that was a a true mistake or really just a learning lesson. And you need to have learning lessons to be able to adapt and evolve and so on. So that's why I say life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. And if you take away the lesson and use that as a way to improve and actually build and get better, then it's a good thing. Like I look back and I think about all the different mistakes that I've made, and I'm grateful for them because I've learned a lot of really great lessons that I can now deploy into future decisions that had I not learned those lessons, I probably would be making more expensive mistakes today. Anyway, take that for what it's worth, Miles Davis, or an experience that we had over the weekend. And this is the AMMA. So you guys submit questions. You text us at 404-531-7691, and we answer them on the show. You guys know we do different types of episodes. Or if you don't know, we got the traditional interview style episodes. We bring on a guest from the legal industry and beyond. And then we've got the encore editions. We bring back the most popular episodes. And then one thing you might notice is that there's an absence of ads and advertising and sponsors. We get offered it all the time, but we say no, so we can say whatever the hell we want on the podcast. The same thing for our guests. They get to say whatever they want. But if you get any sort of value from this podcast, maybe you just learned something, or maybe it made you laugh, maybe it made you cry, if you could please leave us a 5-star review, whether you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever, some people are just watching this on YouTube, okay? You can leave a comment on YouTube. I don't know if you can leave a review on YouTube, but you can still pull up Spotify or Apple Podcasts and leave a review there. This helps us reach more people, helps the show grow, and helps us keep the podcast free. So with that, Jessica, what questions do we have on the AMMA today?
All right. Question number 1. Michael, I run a small personal injury firm. We did $5 million last year, and my marketing team is pushing for a major campaign that would cost $100,000. But my COO thinks we should invest that money in better systems and hiring first. The marketing would help drive immediate value through leads, but we're already struggling to handle our current caseload efficiently. How do you decide what to invest in? Everybody wants leads, though, Michael.
I know, but you just, even like when you're asking this question, by the time you get to the end, do you really have to hit submit? Because you already know the answer. You're saying you're already struggling to keep up with the existing case flow and the existing leads. So let's play this out in 2 ways. Number 1, you invest in more demand and more leads. You're already struggling. So what's going to happen next? You're going to struggle even more. How is that good for anyone? Alternatively, you invest in systems and scale to better be able to support greater capacity, and as a result, you stop struggling. So given these 2 options, I know it's very, very difficult to kind of consider down these 2 different paths, right? Let's say you're in the future and it's 5 years from today and you're looking back over the decision that you've made. Do you prefer the decision that led to increased pain and struggle and ultimately did not solve a long-term problem? Or do you prefer the decision that was, okay, we invested in our foundation and this enabled us to be able to create greater capacity, which then enabled us to make investments like, let's say the $100,000 in marketing, to be able to better support and fuel our growth. But you know what's funny? Someone's going to hear all this, and if they're in this situation, they're back, all right, get the leads.
Oh, for
They're
sure.
going to still do it because it's
Yes.
like it's what they want versus what they need.
Yes.
So I think sometimes the reason this question is even asked is that the person already knows the right answer, but they don't want to make the right answer. They want to do the thing that they want to do, which, by the way, it's your business. You get to choose. So you can absolutely do the wrong thing just because you want to. And that does not make it like a right or a wrong. It's just your business and it's your life and you get to make all the choices. And that's the part of being the CEO and being the boss, where sometimes you're just like, you know what? This is totally the wrong thing to do. We're going to do it anyway. Why? Because it's just what you wanted.
Because you can.
Because you can.
Yeah.
So don't let me talk you out of it with all this logic. Do what the heart
Not
wants.
like we've been there before.
Yeah.
So, all right, question number 2. Michael, I run a personal injury firm in a very competitive market, Houston, Texas, and my biggest competitor is steadily expanding into new markets. I believe they're growing revenue faster than us, but I also know this guy and it feels like a recipe for disaster, and I believe they're going to crash and burn soon. My approach has been more centered around optimizing around our current market. I don't want to succumb to pressure and model his growth path, but I am tempted. How do you resist the pressure to match what competitors are doing when your approach seems to be working? We're very focused on the other people.
Yeah,
sounds like.
Comparison is the thief of joy. Well, here's the thing. So there's this amazing show. It's called Bluey. And we've seen every single episode of Bluey. And it's fantastic. Like there's short episodes, they're like 8-minute episodes, and each one is like a fable, or there's some lesson that's learned. It's awesome. It's even great for adults, but it's a kids show. And there's an episode of Bluey that's called Baby Race.
Oh, yeah.
And it's the story of the mom telling her kids about when one of the children was younger, that it was a competition amongst the other moms on like whose child would be the first to walk. Her daughter Bluey was the first one, I think, to learn how to just sit up. And all the other moms were impressed. And then they're like, one of the child, I think, like the children judo, she learned to crawl, but Bluey wasn't crawling yet. So the mom was like distraught.
Yes.
Because she's like, well, at this age, like she should be crawling, and she just doesn't know how to crawl the bum shuffle. She knew how to bum shuffle, but she wasn't like crawling. So she went to the doctor, and the doctor was like, well, some babies bum shuffle before they crawl. Like it's totally normal. Like the doctor sees this all the time. And then anyway, like it was just this competition amongst the moms. And then eventually like judo wins, and like the mom is first, like at first she's like distraught. Why didn't her child do this first? Right? Even though everyone was completely normal, right? Like in terms of like childhood development. And the mom, like judo's mom, comes to her, and I think she had like 8 children, like 8 little poodle pets, you know? And she said, she tells her, can I give you some advice? And she's like, yes. He's like, you're doing great. And she's like, well, my 8 kids. And she's like, oh, I thought you had judo. I was like, okay, 9, right? You're getting keep track of all kids. And she said, well, some of them started at this age, and some of them started doing this at this age. And the lesson for her was to run your own race. And I would encourage the person, because I'm sure I'm telling the story, and they're like, God dang, get to the point, man. What does this have to do with the questions the person asked?
Go watch the episode. It's so
right?
good.
Yeah, it's Baby Race. You could probably find it on YouTube or something, right? But the point here is that if what you're doing is working, then who cares what somebody else is doing? Like you feel like this FOMO, like this fear of missing out, when in reality, it's like just run your own race. If you feel like they're going to crash and burn anyway, like I promise you, if someone's going to crash and burn, they're going to do it without your involvement. You don't need to push them down the hill if they're already rolling down the hill. And if what they're doing is working, then great. But if what you're doing is working, then what does that have to do with what their approach is? I think sometimes people they crave novelty as opposed to a sound approach that's consistent over time. And if you have a model where you're trying to leverage what's going on in your existing market and optimizing for your systems and scale, and it served you well, then stay focused and stay leaned in. So how do I do it? I focus on us running our own race. Yeah. What somebody else is doing is their business. And if what we're doing is leading to a lot of success, then that's where we're focused. In many ways, I sometimes feel like I don't know what other competitors are doing, what other businesses are doing. And it's not to say like that I'm ignorant of the market or any sort of like trends and things like that, but it's more so to do with our focus is on providing value for our clients. And our focus is on solving our own challenges internally. And I find that when you do those things, growth becomes an inevitability. Again, I'll say it, for the 100th time, but run your own race.
Yes.
Like that's the takeaway here. That's the way to stay focused. It's like if what you're doing is working, then keep doing that.
Absolutely.
And what somebody else is doing is their business.
All right. And to close us out with question number 3, hey, Michael, I run a family law firm with 2 other partners, and we've been turning down potential clients because we're at capacity. I'm hesitant to hire more people until we perfect our current processes. My partners think I'm being too cautious and that we should strike while the market is hot. When do you know it's time to expand capacity versus when you should focus on optimizing what you already have?
So this can go either way.
Yeah.
This one's actually, this is an interesting question. Like the previous 2, I'm not trying to I go too hard, and then they're going to start submitting questions because they're like, I don't want to be embarrassed. Even though we keep it anonymous, this is another thing that comes back to like, what are your goals? Right? If you're trying to grow your law firm and you're finding yourself in a situation where you're driving so much demand that you're having to turn business away, your options are to either raise your prices or expand your capacity or both. If you're having to turn business away, and I'm of the belief that, oh man, I was trying to find a nice way to say this, but like piss in the face of the universe. Okay, that's probably the thing I can come to. Okay. And it's like if things are going good and you're having to turn business away, just know that there's another side to this where you are desperately trying to gain business, right? And you have a luxury of turning business away. So the best thing you can do in that type of situation, from my perspective, is to be able to expand your capacity to be able to take on that business. Either that or raise your prices so that even if you are turning business away, that it nets out to be, the same or more. Right. Sometimes like perfect is the enemy of good, good enough. And like, yes, you can always do things better. But if your goals are to grow and scale your firm, and let's say your goal is to either increase revenue, increase profit, and so on, that if you're turning business away, the challenge with that is like there's a lot of downstream effects relating to that. Like, I think it makes sense to turn away business if you're just so overwhelmed, and if by taking on more businesses kind of compromise the quality of service and ultimately lead to a negative client experience. And if you have a negative experience, that word is going to spread. But if you have a ton of demand right now and you're turning away, like you're choosing to turn it away, as opposed to taking on that business and like kind of figuring out how to scale in the process, there's probably a nice balance here, right? I think there's a nice middle ground to where you don't have to start accepting everything, but maybe being more selective in what you do accept, as opposed to just saying we're not open for additional business right now. Well, I keep coming back to the fact that like you can raise your prices, right? I mean, just again, particularly in this area of law, chances are if you're having to turn business away, it's either because you provide a really, 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 really amazing service and the word is spread that like you're just so in demand. It's like you go to one of these restaurants where they sell out of the cookies by like 9 o'clock in the morning and there's a line right around, the whole block, which is interesting because I'll kind of go down this path. So it's interesting in like the restaurant analogy because it creates like scarcity and demand, which makes restaurants really popular when they sell out of the pizza or they sell out of the burger or they sell out of the cookies by a certain hour, because now people are like, man, it must be so good that we're going to line up every single day. But at the same time, if like there's some people that don't want to wait in line for 3 hours or 4 hours, so they're never going to be a client. And you also lose a potential referral source. And if, depending on how your firm grows, I mean, I can't tell, depending on this question, whether it's just through your marketing efforts or it's through word of mouth or a referral, that every time you turn somebody away, you don't give yourself an opportunity to get a future referral.
Right.
So it depends on what your goals are. And maybe there's a nice middle ground. Like I said, either raise your prices, be more selective in who you work with, but yes, also build up your capacity if the goal is to grow, right? Like you can turn away business all day long if you're happy where you are and you have zero desire to grow and scale your firm. Like if everybody's happy, which it doesn't sound like you are, and again, it comes back to it's your business and it's your life and you can decide, right? You could argue and say, well, why doesn't the cookie place just make more cookies? And why doesn't like the pizza place just serve up more pizzas, right? Why do they have to sell out every day? Well, they choose to, right? Like that's their present capacity.
Yes.
Right? And some of these places that become really popular expand into multiple locations and they start servicing like different areas of the city, or they figure out a way to be able to create more. Like I remember there's a place in Atlanta called Holman and Finch. And this place would sell out of the burger, like the H&F burger, every day by like, I don't know, like noon or something like that. The people were like, man, you got to get there early to get the burger. It was so good. And then other restaurants started offering this burger, right? I don't know if they did like licensing deals or they sold like the H&F bread and like the recipe and so on. And it was a way for them to be able to spread their brand. But I never wanted to wait in line for a burger.
But we get it somewhere else now.
You can get it somewhere else. And I know of another great restaurant that has it.
Yes.
Right? So... And then they added it to, you could order delivery. You don't even have to wait in line. So they figured out a way to expand their capacity and they were able to monetize that as well. So
get creative.
Yeah. But there wouldn't have ever been that demand had they not sold out.
Right. The initial.
And gained that reputation as like serving a really incredible burger.
Yes.
That was worth selling out over. Just be careful not to take that too far because then you're going to rule out a segment of the market that doesn't want to wait for it. Or there's some people that wait an hour, but there's not going to be people who wait 5 hours.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Don't overcorrect.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So
all right.
That's that.
See you next time.
All right.
You've been listening to the Game Changing Attorney podcast with Michael Mogill. If you found this episode valuable, here are 3 free ways that we can help you grow your law firm. Number 1, download the first chapter of Michael's book absolutely free at gamechangingattorney.com. Number 2, you can shoot Michael a text at 404-531-7691 and ask him any question you'd like. You might just hear the answer on the next episode. And finally, number 3, if you can leave this podcast a 5-star review, it will help us gain access to more influential thought leaders and bring their lessons learned here to you. For more information on this episode, see the show notes in your podcast app or visit legalpodcast.com.